Startup sequence initialized.
What can I do for you, gentlemen?
You the guy with the Van Halen tickets?
That could be.
How much you want for something in the first 10 rows?
$20 a piece.
Those tickets are only $12.50.
But I'm buying.
Here's my favorite band, Van Halen.
Guns N' Roses, AC/DC,
Iron Maiden,
Metallica,
Motley Crue,
Def Leppard,
ZZ Top,
Alice Cooper.
Listen, gentlemen, I perform a service here.
Here we go again.
Don't keep the audience waiting. Are you ready for this?
yeah.
Happy Wednesday. Hey, it's Top Jimmy here. Live jam session episode number 31. Can't believe we made it this far. Tonight we have a special guest. We're going to talk all things ROCKNPOD with ROCKNPOD organizer Chris Czynszak. Let me bring Chris on in. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on, man.
You bet. Thanks for joining me. I've been telling folks about ROCKNPOD, but I figure who better to talk about it than the main organizer behind the event himself. So tell me a little bit about, overall, what is ROCKNPOD, how to get started, what brought you to delivering this amazing event?
Oh, well, first, thank you. Well, the way it started was, it goes back. I started doing music podcasting in 2011. So I'm going into my 12th year now. And my show's Decibel Geek, me and my co-host Aaron Camaro, and a lot of it's just, you make these friendships over the years, like doing at the time it was more Skype than Zoom, and you talk to these people from all over the world, and a lot of the time you get done having this great conversation and be like, man, it'd be fun to meet up with you for a beer or something, but you're 600 miles away. I can't really do that. And another podcasting friend of mine, BJ Cramp or Brian Cramp, who put out an amazing Cheap Trick book this year. He hosts a show called Rock and or Roll podcast, and he was just like, we should try to do some sort of a meetup or something somewhere. And he's like, Nashville's a music town, maybe, so I kind of by default got made organizer because I live here. And excuse me. So I was like, well, how are we gonna pay for this? And he's like, well, we could do a crowdfunding. And I was like, well, if we're gonna have listeners help crowdfund us meeting, then they should get to come too. And if they're going to come too, then they should be able to do more than stare at a bunch of middle-aged podcasters talking to each other. So, as you probably know, a lot of rock guys from back in the day moved here over the years, and I've been lucky enough to interview several of them. And so I just started calling in favors, just saying, hey, would you come here and do interviews? And maybe we could open it up to the public and have fans come and meet you, get their record signed and all that. And then the vinyl explosion was really taking place around that time. So I was like, well, I'll get some vinyl vendors on board and memorabilia. And then it just sort of organically became a convention. It wasn't even initially planned to be that.
Right.
And the first year we did it in this little strip mall event center over by Opryland. And none of us knew what to expect, but drew decent for a first year and had like over 20 podcasts from all over the country come for it. And had guests like Mark Slaughter even popped in, but Michael Wagner and Gunnar Nelson was there. And just it's one of the great things about Nashville is you really can run into anybody. And I got a lot of yeses for the guests. So it just was the big overarching thing was it was just so much fun. Everybody just had such a good time. It's kind of like your Facebook come to life, and we did it the first year and it was so much fun that I was like, well, I guess we got to do it again. And crowdfunded the second year and did it at a place called the Nashville Palace, which is kind of an old honky tonk type bar. And, it was good, but like we just kept doing it. By the third time we went into hotels, cause like I have to make this legitimate and do it as a real convention where people register and all that. And it's just, that was the scariest year. Cause it's like, now we really have to lay it on the line here. And, that turned out great. And then this last one was at the Hilton by the airport, and it grows year over year, and now we're in our biggest venue yet.
That's awesome. So this is your fifth or how many?
Yeah, it would have been the sixth, but thanks to COVID, it's the fifth.
Yeah, COVID kind of kicked everybody in the ass, but I think the good part is there's a hunger out there from the fans, from the musicians, everywhere. That's like, hey, let's get out, let's see some shows, let's connect, kind of thing.
Yeah.
At least that's what I've seen.
Well, and it's a unique event. Like there's really not much out there like it, because it's kind of it's kind of a combination of a trade show, with a networking part with the podcasters and content creators, but it's also a fan expo with the dealers and also the fans coming to get their stuff signed, and then the artists. It's a win-win for them, because they get to meet up with the fans, sell some stuff to them, and then also do basically a press junket in a day with several interviews. So there's not much that compares to it. Also makes it kind of difficult to explain to people sometimes what it is, because I've had some people go, "Oh, I would go to that, but it's just for podcasters." I'm like, "No, it's for everybody."
Right.
But also the ulterior motive for me as a podcaster has been, these guests come in and I'm happy to have them, but they're also bait for people to get turned on to music podcasting. That's the real ulterior motive I've had through all of these.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And like you said, you've been doing it for so long. I think I saw that you and Aaron and the Decibel Geek podcast are like 540 episodes or something. That's mind blowing like that.
515, I think, as of this week. Yeah,
it's pretty up there, and I've enjoyed it. I have, of course, never listened to 500 episodes, but I've listened to a dozen or so, and then sat in on, you guys do a Friday Night Live and some other stuff once in a while. And that's one of the things that kind of drew me to the music podcasting world. Was it's like a bunch of friends hanging out, talking about music and sharing music. And have you seen this? You remember when this happened? Or I heard so-and-so's getting back together. I heard, it's just, a super cool event. And it's even beyond just music. It's kind of like the periphery. You've got, there was a book, and I hate to admit it, I still haven't read it, from 2021, but you had an author, his name is escaping me now. He wrote a couple of Van Halen, related.
Greg Renoff. Yeah.
Yeah, Greg. I picked up Greg's book, had some great conversations with Greg, and now his book is somewhere here in the house. I gotta find it and read that. And it's just, it looks like it's even growing beyond just the ROCKNPOD. You've now got, right, you got stuff happening before the main expo. You got some stuff happening afterwards. What do you got going on?
Yeah. So, for podcasters and the VIPs that bought tickets, first thing they'll get the first thing which will be at the East Side Bowl venue in Nashville. It's like, if you're familiar with the Brooklyn Bowl chain, it's kind of like that. It does have bowling lanes, but it's got like a diner, a full bar, and then a music venue in the back. And it's one of the newer venues in town, and it's just so cool looking. I'm excited to work with them. And first thing will happen be Friday afternoon. We'll have like a cocktail mixer for podcasters and VIPs at that venue. And then that night is the pre-party, which will be a Rare Hair show. And Rare Hair is a series of shows here in Nashville that my friend Tyson Leslie puts on. And Tyson is the keyboardist for Vixen and plays with everybody. It's crazy. And it's like a rotating series of pro Nashville musicians, some of which play for like Taylor Swift and people like that, but they're metalheads. And it's a lot of deep cut rock songs. And we did it last year and it went really great. And we're doing it again, and it'll be some of the expo guests like Eric Martin and Stevie Rachelle and Jason McMaster will get up on stage and do a couple of songs. And it's just a super fun it's a covers night with famous people, so it's always a lot of fun. That'll be Friday night. And then Saturday at the Nashville Fairgrounds will be the ROCKNPOD Expo, which will be going out throughout the day. Panel discussions, live interviews, tons of podcasters doing interviews, vinyl memorabilia, comic, pop culture, horror vendors of all kinds. And we've expanded that too, because it's like, what, we're all nerds, so we might as well add more nerd culture into the whole mix. And that'll be going on all day. And then that night is Keel Fest, which is going to be a cool show at a place called Bowie's that Ron Keel's label RFK Media is putting together. And it's Ron Keel band, the band Keel, a Steeler reunion with Ron and Rick Fox with Mitch Perry on guitar, and also the Nashville debut of Crashing Wayward and the Fifth, which are two great bands on their label. And that'll be a cool night on Saturday night. And then Sunday during the day, there's the comic and pop culture portion of the convention, which will be on at the fairgrounds. And then also we're doing a movie screening of Kiss Exposed, which was a home video in the 80s. And Courtney Cronin Dole, Craig Gass, and Don Jameson, all comedians, are going to be doing kind of like the Mystery Science Theater type of dialogue commentary over the movie. We did that with Kiss Meets the Phantom last year, and it was a big hit. And then that night, to close out the weekend, will be the Punchlines and Backlines comedy show with those comedians, and doing comedy for the first time, Eric Martin and Mr. Big.
Wow.
And I'm excited for that because he's funny and just in general. And then him and his bandmates are going to do what they call Eric Martin's Big Acoustic, which will be a full live set of solo stuff and Mr. Big hits. I went and saw that show in Alabama like a year ago, and it's just a great show. And Eric's just such a charismatic performer that it's a must see.
Yeah, I've been hoping to catch him in his solo item, so this is really cool. I think that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Into a weekend, and then for those of us who are Irish on St. Patrick's Day, that's St. Patrick's Day weekend, so it could be out of hand for some of us. But,
there's gonna be a lot of hangovers at the expo. There always is.
Yeah, because I was talking when we were chatting a little bit beforehand. I'd mentioned my wife and I came to ROCKNPOD 2021, and we were trying to figure out the lay of the land, and we saw the pre-party and the Rare Hair event that Tyson put on. I think it was at the Mercy Lounge.
Yeah,
and we happened to get there kind of early because we wanted to get a good spot. Right, we're getting old like a bunch of folks, so it's like, okay, let's find a spot that's kind of out of the way. We're not going to get trampled. I don't want it to be in the path of everything. So we're kind of standing where we think is out of the way. And next thing we know, it's like, okay, I turn and, hey, there's Anthony Corder from Tora. and he, of course, we've seen him a couple of times now. And so he's like, hey, how are you? And he's just a nice, Anthony's just the nicest person you could ever meet. And he's saying hi and he's talking to us. And then the next thing you know, Todd Poole from Roxy Blue, walks up and starts talking. And then Todd's wife stepped up, and Anthony's like, hey, have you met Todd's wife, Amy? And it's just like, my mind is like, these are freaking rock star people, right? They've been rock stars. People have been listening to their music for 30 years, and they're talking with us just like we've known them forever, and just introducing each other and spouses and taking pictures. And that whole event was just, I want to use the word outrageous, but not in the bad sense. In the, oh my God, this is outrageous that there is so much music going on, so many artists, so many folks getting up and jamming and bouncing out. And we saw Ron Keel was there, and my wife is like, who is this? His voice is amazing. I'm like, it's Ron Keel from Steeler, Keel, The Right to Rock. She's like, he still sounds amazing. It's just, so it was just a total fun time, and we saw so many different folks. And so I am super excited to see what comes of this year's event, because, knowing, like you said, there are so many folks that just have now, transplanted to Nashville. It's not just, country music anymore. It is Music City, whatever the genre might be.
Yeah, the crazy thing for me is I'm a Nashville native, and which surprises people because it seems like there's not that many of us left.
Right.
But and I grew up here in the 80s, so a lot of the bands I love are all these 80s artists. And when I was a kid, I would watch the Decline of Western Civilization Part 2 documentary and just dream about going to the Sunset Strip and being a part of that scene. And you could have knocked me over with a feather if you told me that 30 plus years later all those people will be moving out here, right, and I know a lot of them. It's pretty wild.
Yeah that is amazing. And like I said, just knowing what happened last time, and then I was chatting, I like to, when I see an organizer or a performer or whatnot, I like to try and thank them. So I happened to see Tyson running like a madman at the expo, and I just said, hey, I just wanted to say, thanks for everything you did. You were amazing, because, he organizes the Rare Hair, and one time he's on drums, then 2 songs later he's playing keys, then he's on guitar, then he's singing, then he's, and he's not only organizing, but he's playing and filling in if somebody, wasn't able to make. He was just a madman. And so I thanked him, and he's like, hold on a minute. He reaches in his pocket and he's like, give me your phone. I'm like, what? Give me your phone. Okay, sure. Whatever. So I give him my phone, and he taps some crazy looking business card thing on it, and it's like, boom, all Tyson's contact information, however you want to find him, however. And he's like, cool. You ever need anything? Let me know. Boom. And he was off like a shot. He's like, wow. Okay.
Yeah. That's why I work with him for ROCKNPOD every year. Cause he's just as insane as I am about this stuff.
Yeah. And then, the event, the expo itself, like I said, we showed up, we weren't sure what to expect. There were folks selling vinyl. There was, if you're a Kiss fan, there was one vendor that had just an insane amount of Kiss stuff. So I think my friends Julie and Eric will be happy about all the Kiss stuff. Of course, I think they were there. They were the ones that were there in 2021.
Yeah, they're friends of mine too.
Sweet. They are so cool. And then you've got I think this year you got Mark Weiss, a photographer, famous photographer in the rock and roll world.
I'm stoked to have him because he took so many classic photos and album cover shots and he's a big supporter of what we do. He gets the whole concept of it and everything. And yeah, I'm excited to have him there. It'll be his first time coming this year.
Yeah. And then, right. It's like always, it's like, I see the list of who's announced and whatnot. And of course, a bunch of names, jump right out, but there's some that I'm like, well, who is this? Who is BB Buell? So
we haven't
hop on the internet
yet.
And I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Oh,
that you just leaked something there. That's all good. That should be announced this week anyway. But that she's pretty famous. But she's pretty almost famous if you read the history.
Yes. All right. Yeah. Well, I'll have to edit that and post.
No, you don't have to. It's all good. It'll probably be known pretty soon. But yeah, like who are some of the ones you're looking forward to the most?
Oh, so there are a couple of folks I'm looking forward to. So of course Ron Keel. I had an opportunity back in December. He played an event in December, and I was there, and he agreed to do a station ID for me. So I had my board set up and everything. Hit the record button. Ron leaves this awesome ID. He's like, okay, he goes off to play. I look. The microphone was muted.
No,
son of a rookie mistake, right? But he appears to be such a nice guy, and so I'm looking forward to seeing him again. I was watching one of the performances last time, and somebody shot past me, sat down real quick for like 2 minutes, and caught it a little bit and left. And it's like, holy crap, that was Ron Keel. And it's just he's done so many things, and he seems to be such a supporter of things like this. And there have been a whole bunch of documentaries that I've seen lately, and boom, there's Ron talking about how, Ronnie James Dio was an influence. There's Ron talking about, this and in a couple of things. So I'm excited to see him. Of course, I'm always excited to see Anthony Corder. He said when I was ready to do it, he'd do an interview. So I think I'm ready.
Oh, you'll have no trouble with him. He'll talk your ear off, and he's always got awesome stories.
Yeah, and I think in 2021, Keith and John were there. Did I get that right?
From Tora.
From Tora, yeah.
Yeah,
so they were all so nice, and let's see, there's so many. I sent my list off, and now I'm like, who was it? Oh, Mark Ferrari. I'm excited.
Yeah.
To hopefully get a chance to talk to Mark Ferrari, and then the new and upcoming bands. I think that's another cool thing, right? About ROCKNPOD is you guys aren't just people you've heard of or people that have been putting stuff out for years. You guys have got some fresh new folks that show up there and that you guys showcase, and give them a chance to get in front of people. Yeah. And I think that's super cool.
Well, you gotta pay attention to what the new stuff is, as we learned with Ozzy's retirement today, our old favorites aren't going to be around forever. So, and if the genre is going to thrive and survive, you got to pay attention to what's going on now too. So, and our show just did our best of 2022 episode, and I think in my top 10, I think at least 7 of them were bands that are like, less than 10 years old. So there's a lot of great new stuff out there.
There absolutely is. That was one of my things for the longest time, is it was so hard to find stuff. It's out there, but you know, there are bands that want to be heard. So something like ROCKNPOD where they can show up and meet, you know, other artists and get their word out. You know, I think in 2021, that was where we, you know, walking through and there's a table from Resistant Bite. And I'm looking, I'm like, holy shit, that's Tommy Skioch sitting there, you know, and you know, it was just stuff like that. And, you know, I'm like digging on right now. Where did her name go? Leilani Kilgore.
Oh, she's amazing.
It's like I had seen her name, and then, you know, she was posted at Rock Bottom. I'm like, wait a minute. I've seen her name a couple of times now. And so I gave some of her stuff a listen, and it's just, she's a, you know, young blues artist, and it's awesome. So I'm looking forward to maybe hopefully chatting with her and finding out what's going on with her music.
I think she's going to probably do a song or two at Rare Hair, and I'm going to make sure it's something that can really show off her guitar chops, because that girl can rip on a guitar. That's
awesome. Yeah, I saw a quote that said, she's like Joan Jett if Joan Jett could play guitar.
That's pretty well said.
and she rips. And then, so the linkage, right? You know, you start to find out. I'm a liner notes kind of guy, so I'm digging through. So I'm looking at the stuff for Leilani, and I'm just like looking at her credits. I'm like, wait a minute. So Leilani played bass on Jax Hollow's album, and Jax was at ROCKNPOD 2021.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, there's this, you know, connection kind of thread that weaves through all of these artists, and it's super cool to discover some of that stuff. And Jax, you know, she had a great couple of songs at, I think, the Mercy Lounge, and picked up her album. And so over on the radio side, you know, I love to get that kind of stuff that folks haven't heard of, that folks maybe, you know, aren't aware of, and get it out there. Cause like you said, there's just so much music out there. Anybody that sits there and goes, rock is dead.
And also the, you know, in the relationships, and it is a very small world in this genre. So, cause like another thing with ROCKNPOD, for the guests that come in, it's like a family reunion. I mean, it's like all these guys know, and even different generations, they all know each other. And that's one great thing about, like, a lot of, you know, celebrity conventions you'll go to. It's, you know, William Shatner's doing his signing, you know, from 2 to 3, and you can meet him at that time. And other than that, piss off, you know.
He's gone, right.
But ROCKNPOD, a lot of them will come. They'll have stuff scheduled. Some of them do panels, some do signing sessions. But the majority, and some do, well, you know, we'll do series of interviews, but the majority of the guests will just hang out all day. And I tell people, I'm like, because like some people are like, I'm already getting messages from people that haven't been. They're like, what time do I have to be there to meet Eddie Ojeda from Twisted Sister? And I'm like, you could probably meet him anytime throughout the day. I mean, and they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, it's different than most other conventions. It's way looser. And, you know, it's a tight schedule. But most of the guests have so much fun that they don't want to leave. They just hang out all day and talk to their friends, but they're very approachable. It's another great thing about Nashville, is like everybody kind of lets their hair down a little bit, and it's not stuffy and sterile like a lot of other conventions are.
Yeah, I think that was awesome. So my wife might kill me, but so we're walking through the area, and we come across Ricky Rackman's table at ROCKNPOD 2021. And sitting with Ricky is his friend, Ace Von Johnson. And my wife is just like, that's Ace Von Johnson. It's like, yes, it is. So she's chatting with Ace, and she's, you know, he's a great guitarist, you know, good guy, loves pets, and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And they talked for a while, and he had some, you know, photos, you know, whatnot. My wife's like, oh, I want to get this picture. So we got some pictures. And then later on, Ace was doing a signing, and my wife's like, I got to go over, you know, and see Ace again. It's like, okay, cool. So she goes over, and Ace happened to mention something about being thirsty or whatnot. My wife's like, what do you need? I'll run out to the bar. So she was just, you know, fangirling over Ace Von Johnson, and totally, like you said, totally approachable. You know, they're just normal folks. I had a similar, you know, experience of walking into the hotel and coming out. I'm like, that's Billy Sheehan. Holy crap. I'm like, hi, Billy. He's like, how you doing? You know, he's just the nicest guy.
Yeah, Billy's one of the nicest people you could ever meet.
Yeah, super nice. And like I said, this has kind of grown. So Native Sons, they're a smaller up and coming band. They just played the Whiskey in LA, but Native Sons out of Louisville is going to be there. And those guys actually had an album scheduled to come out, and there was a couple things going on. They decided, you know what, we'll push out our release to ROCKNPOD weekend. So now you've not only got, folks coming to show up, but now you got like albums being scheduled for release for during your event, man. That's
wild. Yeah. I never expected it to get to that point, but yeah, it's just a true, like, ultimate, it's a gathering to celebrate rock and roll every year. So it's and I've got a great team that works with me, and I may be the big idea guy, but the small details are handled by Tracy McAndrew, Andy Connors, Victor Ruiz on the website. I just have to shout these people out because they do the real hard work that goes into this. Of course, my wife, Michelle, not only works hard on the event, but keeps me sane. When that song 19th Nervous Breakdown is pretty much me for the next few weeks, but I'll get through every year. It's just the insanity behind the scenes is nuts. It comes off like a well-oiled machine, but it takes a lot of work to get there.
Well, I want to, ahead of time, in case I forget, I want to thank all of the folks that you mentioned. Tracy has been an amazing communicator on some of the stuff behind the scenes, and all of the effort that you put in, and that guy Aaron, he just puts on his silver jumpsuit, right, and then sees the thing. Well,
nobody can MC the event like he can, so he gets a lot of credit, and he also helps keep me sane. If it wasn't for him and then Decibel Geek, I love doing that show because I'm like, you know what, I get to talk about rock stuff that's not ROCKNPOD related for a little while. I love ROCKNPOD, but you have to learn to compartmentalize at times,
Well, we look forward to coming. I hope folks are as excited as I am about all the things going on at ROCKNPOD weekend. ROCKNPOD.com is where you can go to find your ticket links. There are a couple of bundles so that you can put together. You can get early passes. You can get your regular passes if you want to do the weekend bundle with the Pop Culture Comic Expo the following day. You can get all your tickets for the pre-party, for the movie matinee, for the Eric Martin event. That site's got everything you need, rocknpod.com. Thanks, Chris, for joining, and I look forward to seeing you in March.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. So glad you're coming.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right.
All right. For folks that are on Mixcloud, I'm going to drop real quick. That's our interview with Chris Czynszak. If you can't tell, I am super excited about ROCKNPOD 2023. A lot of great stuff going on there. If you can make it, join us the 17th through the 19th of March. I'm going to drop video for a moment and then pick right back up. If you're on Mixcloud, you'll see it in a moment. If you were watching on Facebook, hopefully that was coming through, or YouTube. Got to end the show here because Facebook and YouTube don't do music licensing like Mixcloud does, so we can't do all our cool music stuff. So catch you guys on the flip side. Tune into mixcloud.com/live/jam session if you want to check it out. Thanks again. And if I don't see you, crank it up and let's jam.